My name is Mandy Rose Nichols. Welcome back to Novelty. Tonight we're reading from Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale book, and we are going to be doing The Emperor's New Clothes. We've all heard derivatives of this at one time or another, I'm sure, so it'll be interesting to hear it from the source. And we are drinking Peach Apricot Honeybush from the Perennial tea room here in Seattle. It's a lovely peach tea. It's got these really cool nasal overtones, like you can almost smell it before you taste it. Usually I have honey or sugar and cream in it, but this doesn't need anything, which is great because I shouldn't have that while I'm reading anyway. So anyway. All right, Elliot's a little restless. That's fine. You got your jammies on? You ready? You all tucked in? Okay, let's go. Many years ago, there was an emperor so exceedingly fond of new clothes that he spent all his money on being well dressed. He cared nothing about reviewing his soldiers, going to the theater, or going for a ride in his carriage, except to show off his new clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, and instead of saying, as one might about any other ruler, "The king is in council," they always said, "The emperor is in his dressing room." In this great city where he lived, life was always gay. Every day, many strangers came to town, and among them one day came two swindlers. They let it be known that they were weavers, and they said they could weave the most magnificent fabrics available. Not only were their colors and patterns so uncommonly fine, but clothes made of this cloth had a wonderful way of becoming invisible to anyone who was unfit for his office or who was unusually stupid. "Those would be just the clothes for me," thought the emperor. "If I wore them, I'd be able to discover which men in my empire are unfit for their posts, and I could tell the wise men from the fools. Yes, I certainly must get some stuff woven for me right away." He paid the two swindlers a large sum of money to start work at once. They set up two looms and pretended to weave, though there was nothing on the looms. All the finest silk and purest gold thread which they demanded that went into their traveling bags, while they worked with the empty looms far into the night. "I'd like to know how these weavers are getting on with the cloth," the emperor thought. But he felt slightly uncomfortable when he remembered that those who were unfit for their position would not be able to see the fabric. It couldn't be that he doubted himself, yet he thought rather he'd send someone else to see how things were going. The whole town knew about the cloth's peculiar power, and all were impatient to find out how stupid their neighbors were. "I'll send my old minister to the weavers," thought the emperor. "He'll be the best one to tell me how the material looks, for he's a sensible man, and no one does his duty better." So the honest old minister went to the room where the two swindlers sat working away at the empty looms. "Heaven help me," he thought as his eyes flew wide open. "I can't see anything at all." But he did not say so. Both the swindlers begged him to be so kind as to come near to approve the excellent pattern, the beautiful colors. They pointed to the empty looms, and the poor old minister stared as hard as he dared. He couldn't see anything because there was nothing to see. "Heaven have mercy," he thought. "Can it be that I'm a fool and I've never guessed it? Not a soul must know. Am I unfit to be the minister? I would never do to let on that I can't see this cloth." "Don't hesitate to tell us what you think of it," said one of the weavers. "Oh, it's beautiful. It's enchanting." The old minister peered through his spectacle. Such a pattern. What colors. I'll be sure to tell the emperor how delighted I am with it." "We're pleased to hear that," the swindlers said. They proceeded to name all of the colors and explain the intricate pattern. The old minister paid the closest attention so that he could tell it to the emperor, and so he did. The swindlers at once asked for more money, more silk and gold thread, to get on with the weaving. But it all went into their pockets. Not a thread went into the looms, though they worked as hard as their weaving, as hard as ever. The emperor presently sent another trustworthy official to see how the work progressed and how soon it would be ready. The same thing happened to him that had happened to the minister. He looked and he looked, but there was nothing to see in the looms, and he couldn't see anything. "Isn't it a beautiful piece of the gods?" the swindlers said, as they displayed and described their imaginary pattern. "I know I'm not stupid," the man thought, "so it must be that I'm unworthy of my good office. That's strange. I must not let anyone find out, though." So he praised the material he did not see. He declared he was delighted with the beautiful colors and the exquisite pattern. To the emperor, he said, "It held me spellbound." All the town was talking of this splendid cloth, and the emperor wanted to see it for himself while it was still in the looms. Attended by a band of chosen men, among two were his trusted officials, the ones who had been to the weavers, he set out to see the two swindlers. He found them weaving with might and main, but without a thread on their looms. "Magnificent," one of the officials duped. "Just look, Your Majesty, what colors, what design." They pointed to the empty looms, each supposing that the others could see the stuff. "What's this?" thought the emperor. "I can't see anything. This is terrible. Am I a fool? Am I unfit to be the emperor? What a thing to happen to me, of all people." "Oh, it's very pretty," he said. "It has my highest approval." And he nodded approbation to the empty loom. Nothing could make him say that he couldn't see anything. The whole retinue started and stared. One saw no more than another, but they all joined the emperor in exclaiming, "Oh, it's very pretty." And they advised him to wear the clothes made of this wonderful cloth, especially for the great procession he was about to lead. "Magnificent, excellent, unsurpassed," were banded from mouth to mouth, and everyone did his best to seem well pleased. The emperor gave each of the swindlers a cross to wear in his buttonhole and the title of Sir Weaver. Before the procession, the swindlers sat up all night and burned more than 6 candles to show how busy they were finishing the emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth off the loom. They made cuts in the air with huge scissors, and at last they said, "Now the emperor's new clothes are ready for him." Then the emperor came himself with the noblest of noblemen, and the swindlers raised each an arm as if they were holding something. They said, "These are the trousers, here's the coat, and this is the mantle," naming each garment. All of them are light as a spider web. One would almost think he had nothing on, but that's what makes them so fine. "Exactly," all the noblemen agreed, though they could see nothing, for there was nothing to see. "If your imperial majesty will consent to take your clothes off," said the swindlers, "we will help you on with the new ones right here in front of the long mirror." The emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put his new clothes on him, one garment after another. They took him round the waist, and it seemed to be fastening something. That was his train, as the emperor turned round and round in the looking-glass. "How well your majesty's new clothes look! Aren't they becoming?" he heard on all sides. "That pattern, so perfect! Those colors, so suitable! It's a magnificent outfit!" Then the Minister of Public Processions announced, "Your Majesty's canopy is waiting outside." "Well, I'm supposed to be ready," the emperor said, and turned again for one last look in the mirror. "It's remarkably fit, isn't it?" He seemed to regard his costume with great interest. The noblemen who were to carry his train stooped low and reached for the floor as if they were picking up his mantle. They pretended to lift it and hold it high. They didn't dare admit they had nothing to hold. So off went the emperor in possession of his splendid canopy. Everyone in the streets and the windows said, "Oh, how fine are the emperor's new clothes. Don't they fit him to perfection? And see his long train?" Nobody would confess that they couldn't see anything, for that would prove him either unfit of his possessions or a fool. No costume the emperor had worn before was ever such a complete success. "But he hasn't got anything on," a little child said. "Did you ever hear such prattle?" said the father. And one person whispered to another what the child had said. "He hasn't anything on. A child said he hasn't anything on." "But he hasn't got anything on!" the whole town cried at last. The emperor shivered, for he suspected they were right, but he thought, this procession has got to go on. So he walked more proudly than ever, as his noblemen held high the train that wasn't there after all. The end. Tonight we were reading The Emperor's New Clothes from Hans Christian Andersen. We were drinking Perennial Tea Room's Peach Apricot Honeybush. It's delicious. There's even like little tiny squares of what I'm assuming is like dried apricot in it. And it's really nice just by itself. You don't need any sugars or anything. Elliot's asleep, telling me that it's time for bed. Felicity's fast asleep. We're in our jammies. It's time for bed. Good night, friends.